Okay, let's paddle. So, I like sayings as well, and one of my favorites associated with water is the sound and feel of water are worth more than all the poet's words. I think anybody who's been in flowing water or at the beach or just been on a boat, you know how special that really is. And another little tidbit, by the way, since Kemp and I like to say this, your body's approximately 60% water, so therefore if you drink Cape Fear River water, you're made up of 60% of the Cape Fear River. So therefore it's really important that we not only appreciate but know the quality of that water that we've got. And we're all working for that. And in fact, I do want to recognize Councilwoman Slett Andrews here tonight because she's been an advocate for all of our natural world that we're looking at. So we really appreciate you coming and also supporting the community. Okay, so a lot of you, in fact, have worked on some of this, and turns out to fruition, we've had something really good happen. Governor Stein actually signed into law HB 23 that recognized the Gullah Geechee Greenway Blueway Trail on the Brunswick County side of the river. So all the way from Yabassa right now down to the Nature Park, Brunswick Nature Park is going to be the first part of that, and then eventually get all the way down to Southport. And so what our goal is to add in the blue to the greenway. So we want to add in the blueways that will actually support that, and all the things that we've shown you so far with Marks Maritime, with Oscu's, looking at the rice canals, all the natural, specialness of the area are the things that we want to add into this. And those little dots that you see up there, Yabassa, Leland, Belleville, and over here at the Battleship and Wilmington area, all of these are opportunities for us to look at these areas and we think do something really special. So the things that we think are special for this is to go in and be able to recreate, but also educate, and you can even make money. So ecotourism is a big opportunity for us in this area. I always tell people that, hey, if you could just, go over to the Battleship, and also if we had our nature park, you could spend a day on Eagles Island and come back at nighttime and stay in the motels, hotels, and frequent the restaurants, or if you so desire, a bar. And you could do that at nighttime, so it's a win for everybody if you do that. So when we look at this, these are opportunities to actually show that we can look at the Gullah Geechee heritage. We can learn about the maritime history and the boardwalk. Mark mentioned this. And be able to have places where we can actually put in and go around Eagles Island and learn something while having fun at the same time. So in looking at all these areas, there's a lot of opportunity, and I'm going to add in the environmental education and ecotourism. And you see down here, school opportunities. This is amazing opportunities for, young kids, secondary schools, even colleges. In fact, we have studies going on out there. When I was teaching, I took students out there and paddled around. We sampled the water and did all kinds of stuff as my geology classes. So we can do that and be able to do all these things for not just the community, but also tourists coming into the area. And one thing we want to do is to highlight all that beautiful environment and the biodiversity that we've got. At the same time, being able to paddle and have fun. And one of the ideas we have is to put signage out in the marsh areas. And of course, you'd be able to go along with your phone and snap that and be able to hear the story as well as see the story on there. And these are things that we think would be really opportunities for us all. And so what I want to show you is a couple of ideas on rice trails. So turns out that Yabassa has Davis Creek, and if you haven't paddled that, that's a real treat in itself because you got cypress, and right now, by the way, as you know, we have our fall a little bit later than the mountains, but in late October, November, the cypress and the other trees are going to start changing. I'm telling you, it's a beautiful thing to see. So take advantage of it. And right there, going down there, you had some really nice cypress trees. So Yabassa's Davis Creek, Leland's Cypress Cove, and then that's Sturgeon Creek, and then down here, Belleville Park. And of course, over here is the Battleship Park area. So what you see here are a bunch of different colors. I've just color-coded them, got blue for the Yabassa site that you can take some paddles, you know, yellow for the Leland area and red for Belleville, and this kind of green area, white area for the other side of the river. So I want to show you a couple of aspects of that. So I'm just going to show you two possibilities. So this particular one is looking at the Cape Fear Riverside. And so if you look at this area, what you can see is the Battleship. There's a kayak launch. Just to say we could use that. And you can go up this way. You might notice these little round circles. Those are dredge spoil islands. And in fact, I'm going to show you A and B here. And you can do side trails. By the way, this yellow trail is about 3.5 miles. And all these trails are doable trails in 2 to 4 hours, very importantly. But you can add on pieces that's going to give you a longer visit if you would like to do that. And so in looking at this one, you could take a side trek onto the Rice Canal. You could go further up here, and this is what I want to show you up here with one of these dredge spoils. And by the way, this is called Horseshoe Bend. That didn't used to be there. So in looking at this, I'm going back. So in that area that we're looking at along the Cape Fear, this is exactly what Mark was showing. So one of the opportunities on our Cape Fear River paddle is to highlight all of those areas on Eagles Island that had, you know, the development, but also what's underwater right now with the wrecks that's there. And so that would be part of the area to go into. And of course, everybody wants to highlight the Battleship. It is the North Carolina memorial to the lost men in World War II. And it was brought here in 1961. And lots of things. That's me, by the way. I just kidding. This was in our schools, though. When we were in elementary school, they actually asked, you know, kids, and this was really part of the thing, is give your pennies and dimes to bring the Battleship here. That's what I'm going to ask you tonight, is give us your pennies and dimes so we can do this thing. So that area that you're looking at, in fact, this is very special to me because my father was on one of those tugs to help bring in the Battleship. So we have a lot of history. In fact, my wife's grandfather worked on one of those ferries going across the river as well. So we have some history that's very important to us. Now, this is the horseshoe that's up there, and I want to show you those dredge spoil areas. And you can see all the rice canals in that area. So turns out that wasn't there. This was the river until 1938. And the Army Corps came in and cut that out to make the easier to go. It didn't take you as far to go around the Horseshoe Bend. And it was always silting up as well. Just a little tidbit for you. So this is a picture looking upstream. There's the Brunswick River. There's the confluence of the Cape Fear and the Brunswick. Right there. You can see all the canals. And A here is that dredge spoil. So I'm going to take you into that area right now because these are opportunities for us to have places that we can put educational exhibits on and also even be able to, you know, have kids go up and do educational things, but maybe one of these days even have, places to camp as well on some of these. So this is the area. This is the view. That's A right there. So I'm going to be looking from there out across the river. That's our kayak. So that's looking out into the river right there. And that's the dredge sport. Loblollies, live oaks, sandy. The sand was taken out of the river as part of the dredge relationship. Why do you see trees on all those? They're 10 to 15 feet high. They're above the water, which everything else is about 3 feet above waterline. So that's one. And then this other one, which was B. So right there is B. These are rice canals. So you come down this one with your kayak. So that's entering into that, going that way. You come behind this particular one and climb up on top of it. And by the way, we were doing some filming out there for the little movie that we did. And the film guy said he's never going back there because there was a copperhead on there about 5 feet long and very fat. So, but in looking at this, look at this thing. So this blue one, the blue is looking back into the marsh. So that's your view. And the red is looking out to the river. And notice all the sand that's there. And so this area has a lot of invasive species on it. By the way, it's got tallow trees and all kinds of things that we don't really want there. So we could take some of those out and have an even nicer view for those areas. So let's come over to the other side now and look at Belleville and look at the red trail that's here. So what's really fantastic about this one? Well, it's all fantastic, but that area of the river that you see, there's the causeway. You guys are all going to be calling it the causeway after tonight, I can tell you. So Brunswick River, they widened the Brunswick River by 1,200 feet so they could put those Liberty ships on either side. And there was upwards of 450 there. They were there from 1950, give or take, all the way to 1970 when the last of the Liberty ships was scrapped. And by the way, my father also worked on those. So again, something special for me. So this is the area that you look at. And by the way, one of the things that's very important on this area has changed dramatically. When the battleship came in, where they dug out the area for the battleship, that was all big trees. Living trees, not ghost trees. In 1961, we had not had the same salinity come up the river that we currently have in here. We can also see some beautiful things naturally. We got about a 4.2 foot tide range in the Wilmington area up the Cape Fear River. And you can see some of that here. You can see how that much, right there is the tide range. And so we've got, in this case, Sporobolus. This is the giant cordgrass. We got some Phragmites up here. We got an old osprey nest in here, and of course some ghost trees that we can look at. And this is one of the side canals. This is, if you want to call it the smaller part, the ditch, if you will, that runs perpendicular to the bigger canal, is how they divvied those up. Now, one of the things that's in here too, and Askew alluded to it, is the enslaved labor was absolutely critical for this. And loss of the enslaved labor was one of the big reasons, as Askew mentioned. But can you imagine the work that they had to do? This wasn't just marsh either. They had to remove the trees too. You see all that up there? These are giant cypress trees back up in here. And so they were removing trees and piling mud and stuff up onto the areas. Oh my God, it's amazing. You go out there today and just sit there, in the early morning with the mosquitoes and everything else that's there. I can tell you, without some DEET, you're going to be eaten alive. I mean, this is really harsh conditions. And of course, one of the things we want to highlight in this area on this particular trail that goes around the Alligator River is the rice culture that Askew just mentioned. So showing all of these areas that's there. This particular one, as you can see. So we have an opportunity to educate, is my real point. And if we look at all these, what can we do additionally? One of the things that we have a vision of is to be able to create a park area. And that park area would be able to highlight everything we've talked about tonight. And one of the great places that we really would love to have, obviously, is an area just south of the battleship where we would like to have an educational site that does have the exhibits and boardwalks. And that's the area where the maritime history really is. So one of the ideas for this is to have something like this right along the river. There's the battleship. And to have an educational site. And by the way, remember, everything's water out there, right? You don't want to have stuff that's on the ground. You don't want to have expensive things on the ground that are going to flood. So you have things like boardwalks and rock gravel trails and stuff like that. Hey, if the water comes on it, so what? So one of the things that we want to do in this case is have a raised pavilion that we could have an educational area. We would highlight the rice culture. We could highlight the boardwalk area for our maritime history that's there, all the things about naval stores, and of course have viewing all in here for all the opportunities for birding and others. So our real goal with each one of these trails then is to highlight all the things that are possible to see as a true nature park in the area. So I'm going to leave you with this one so we don't bore you too long. This is the idea, this is the vision for Eagles Island that a lot of us have. And it's called an education, recreation, conservation. And I consider this a benefit for all now and into the future. This could really be a site that's a gathering point, a point for not just southeastern North Carolina, but North Carolina and beyond, for people to be able to come here and see all this history, see all the things that we got of this amazing environment that we have. And of course, enjoy some paddling as well. So these are opportunities, and we are just proposing all these things to you so that you see the opportunities, the possibilities that we have going forward. And we want to advertise this to as many people as we can to get the story out. And Larry's done a fantastic job of preparing some of this great website stuff and all these things that we look at. Rich history, significant culture, rich biodiversity. My God, how many times are you going to have that in a single spot? I mean, it's a real go-to place. I quit.